It's a victory edition of Jets Class. Not because the Jets won on Sunday. That doesn't really happen anymore. But it is a win that you're watching this episode, which means so much to me. And we have so much to get to on today's Jets Class. We're going to be talking about the future of the Jets quarterback position. What exactly are they going to do in 2025 if not Aaron Rodgers? A little bit of a look back on that draft class where they took Zach Wilson and what could they have potentially done in that spot instead. We are also going to break down the Jets' path to, yes, really, the number 1 or number 2 pick in the NFL draft. It is all coming on this episode of Jets Class, and it all starts right now with the takeoff. We've been telling you this for weeks. The odds of Aaron Rodgers returning as the Jets starting quarterback in 2025 are astronomically low. It would have taken Jeff Ulbrich and Joe Douglas both coming back. Neither of those two guys are coming back, and the Jets prefer a fresh start at HC, GM, and yes, really quarterback. But that does raise the question of, if not Rodgers, then who? I don't necessarily believe the Jets are going to go the free agent route. Sam Darnold, he is not coming back. Derek Carr, I don't think that's going to happen. Daniel Jones, don't think that's going to happen. Trevor Lawrence, probably highly unlikely he's traded from the Jaguars, and there's no one else really out there as well. What you are likely looking at is Tyrod Taylor, who is on a 2-year deal for the Jets, coming back as this team's starting quarterback with a rookie to be drafted later. Could that be Quinn Ewers? Potentially. Could that be Carson Beck? Yeah. Could that be Jalen Milroe? We will see. But I do believe it's going to be Tyrod Taylor to begin next year for the Jets, and that could be a good thing, because if you get one thing with Tyrod Taylor, it is electric play for as long as he's actually in the lineup. It's time now for 4 Downs, and it is presented by Monmouth University. Explore further at monmouth.edu/amplified. It's 4 topics on the Jets, my thoughts on those topics, and it starts right now with something the Jets rarely get. It's a first down. Well, the Jets are sticking with Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback. Jeff Ulbrich made that clear earlier this week, although I will say this is probably the shakiest ground that Rodgers has ever stood on as this team's starting quarterback, because it did seem, at least there were signs there, that a change could be coming. Ultimately, no change is made. Ulbrich said that he believes Aaron Rodgers gives this team the best chance to win, so he is going to be the team's quarterback for the time being. As far as when a change could potentially happen, I do believe a change could potentially happen, but it won't come because Ulbrich wants the adjustment. Remember that vote of confidence that Rodgers gave Ulbrich when he said, essentially, he hopes he's the last coach that he ever plays for. And then Ulbrich came out and said that he really hopes that Rodgers is back with the Jets next year. Well, Ulbrich is not going to be the Jets head coach. Rodgers is not going to be back. But as long as those two are in a position to make decisions, I do think they're going to ride this thing out the rest of the year. The time that a change could come, if the Jets continue to struggle, if they lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Jaguars, lose to the Rams, maybe there is a mandate from above of, you know what, let's see what Tyrod Taylor can do, because he could be our starter next year. I can't take full credit for this one because Connor Rogers was the one who actually pointed it out on Jets' final drive earlier this week. But the more I looked into it, there is a very clear path for the Jets to finish with either the number 1 or number 2 pick in the NFL draft. Now, that does mean they lose out this season, which actually is kind of possible. They play the frisky Dolphins twice. They play the Rams once, who are a pretty good team. They have to play the Buffalo Bills to end the season, who could be playing for the top seed in the AFC and playing their starters as a result. And then a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who currently hold the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. If the Jets lose that game, and they do lose out, everything is on the table. Now, I do believe 1, 2, whatever it is, the Giants are going to have one of those 2 picks. The one team to keep an eye on it is the Vegas Raiders, because their schedule, as you can see on the screen right here, it is a gauntlet. They're going to rely on Antonio Pierce having his guys get up and go, and Aiden O'Connell pulling a great game out of his you-know-what to potentially steal one when they shouldn't. But if the Raiders win a game, the Jets lose out, and especially they lose that game to the Jaguars, yep, we might just have a New York start to the NFL draft. The Jets are in a significantly better position now than they have been in the past when it comes to desirability of their general manager vacancy. This team is in a significantly better place than when John Idzik took over, Mike Maggagnon's first rebuild, Mike Maggagnon's second rebuild, Joe Douglas in 2019. But the one potential deterrent, and it's not really a deterrent so much as decisions that need to be made when the new guy is hired, is who exactly should he pay from that star-studded draft class. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall. All of those guys are due to be paid in short order. It's hard to foresee a situation where the Jets pay them all, so the new GM is going to have to figure out who are we keeping and who are we letting go. The one caveat, if the Jets are able to find a legitimate franchise quarterback in the second or third round of the draft, the money saved on not having to pay their quarterback, it could go to rounding out the roster elsewhere. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a jinx. It's true. It doesn't matter what stage of life I'm in, what I'm doing, any activity whatsoever. If I voice an opinion on something, odds are the opposite is going to happen. This isn't anything rooted in reporting. This is just if I think it, the other thing happens. If I think it's going to be sunny, it's going to rain. If I think it's going to snow, it's not going to snow. It really does not matter. So it really should come as no shock to anyone that days after I say the Jets might regret passing on Brock Bowers because of how dominant and electric and incredible he looks with the Raiders, Olu Fashanu, the player that they drafted instead, put together a game for the ages. 42 pass blocking reps he had against the Seattle Seahawks. 0 pressures allowed. He's allowed just 5 pressures on all of the snaps he's played left tackle. Oh, by the way, he also filled in admirably at guard when the Jets dealt with all of those issues on the interior of their line a couple weeks ago. So yeah, I would say go ahead and fit Olu for his gold jacket now because look, the Connor curse is real, the Connor jinx is real, but at least now I used it for something to benefit the Jets. What if the Jets didn't draft Zach Wilson, right? I mean, look, I know this is in the past and Jet fans are kind of sick and tired of talking about Wilson, but seriously, think about it. That 2001 draft class, it wasn't exactly loaded with stud quarterbacks. You had Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask. I know there was a lot of hype around those guys then, but none have really panned out. Even Trevor Lawrence, the best of the bunch, the can't-miss prospect, the next Andrew Luck, he's far, far, far from the elite quarterback so many believed he could be. So what would happen if we could maybe jump in our DeLorean, go up to Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, and say, whatever you guys do, do not draft a quarterback? How different would this Jets team look today? So Sam Darnold was on the Jets roster before they decided to draft Zach Wilson, and there was a contingent in place within the Jets building who actually preferred they run it back with Sam. Their thought was trade that number 2 overall pick, have somebody come up that wanted Trey Lance or wanted Zach Wilson, wanted to pay out their minds for a quarterback, give them that pick, and just load up on assets. That would be additional draft compensation that year. That would be additional draft compensation next year. Hope that those players that you would then add to this roster would help you get more out of Sam Darnold. If it didn't work out at all and Sam turned out to be a bust anyway, well, guess what? Now you had additional capital that you could use to trade up in next year's draft to potentially take a quarterback. Now, the player the Jets were going to target if they did, in fact, trade back, it was going to be Devonta Smith, who ended up going to the Philadelphia Eagles. This isn't opinion. This is actually fact. I know this from talking to multiple sources. The Jets knew they needed a number 1 receiver, and they were in love with Smith from Alabama. They liked his ability to get deep. They liked his route running. They thought he would be perfect within Mike LaFleur's offense. So he was one of the first players they were going to take in the first round, giving them a true, legitimate, bona fide number 1. Now, look. We're not going to pretend that Sam Darnold was ever going to develop with Devonta Smith and everyone else the Jets would have drafted with a ridiculous haul that they got for that number 2 overall pick. Odds are, after the year, they are still moving on from Darnold. People need to remember, Darnold wasn't overly successful with the Carolina Panthers, wasn't overly successful with the San Francisco 49ers. It wasn't until he got into that absolutely loaded Vikings offense led by Kevin O'Connell that his career really began to take off, and that happened this season. So the Jets were going to move on. I do not believe, though, that in 2022 they would have just sold the farm to go try to draft someone like Kenny Pickett. No, the player, and I know this from talking to people that they would have gone out and gotten, it was Jimmy Garoppolo. They believed that taking him and putting him, or leaving him really, in the Kyle Shanahan offense with Mike LaFleur would help them bridge themselves to when they could actually find a prospect that they loved, that they wanted, that they coveted. And that player, it would have come in 2023 in the form of the Jets actually selling the farm, doing everything they could to move up into the draft to get the number 1 or number 2 pick, where they would have taken CJ Stroud. Because from talking to multiple sources after that draft, the Jets quarterback power rankings, it was Stroud, then it was Bryce Young, and he would have been this team's quarterback. What a reality that would be for the Jets. Devonta Smith as number 1 receiver, they still would have had their picks to potentially grab Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner later on. They could have retooled the offensive line, had Jimmy Garoppolo as a bridge quarterback before they got CJ Stroud. Who are we kidding? Even if we went back in time, even if we had the DeLorean, even if we reached 88 miles an hour and all that fun stuff to tell the Jets exactly what to do, odds are it still wouldn't work. Because look at the team right now. They have the rebuilt offensive line. They got the weapons on offense. They have a 4-time MVP at quarterback. And we are still having the conversation where they are in contention for the number 1 or 2 pick in the NFL draft and refreshing Tankathon day in and day out. Thank you guys so much for joining this episode of Jets Class. If you want to catch all previous episodes of the show, you can across SNY's digital platforms. That is Facebook, that is X, that is SNY.TV, and that is YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to SNY's channel and give those Jets Class videos a little like, just so you can spread us to other Jet fans. If you want more of me and the rest of the Jets Pregame Live crew, you can find us on Jets Pregame Live on SNY at 12 o'clock before the Jets take on the Dolphins. And make sure you tune into Jets Final Drive on Monday after the Jets take on the Dolphins, win or lose. Janae and I will be breaking the entire thing down. That is Jets Pregame Live on Sunday, Jets Final Drive on Monday. Ton of Jets content all coming to you from SNY.